A World Bank report has said that the Nigerian naira is one of the worst performing currencies in Africa south of the Sahara, a situation which highlights the deepening economic challenges in the country. The report points to policy missteps, foreign exchange scarcity, and reduced oil revenues as major drivers of the currency decline. The report notes that while some African currencies, such as the Kenyan shilling, have shown recovery this year, the naira remains under significant strain. Despite efforts by the government to stabilize the naira by liberalizing the official exchange rate in June 2023, the currency has continued to struggle. I'm joined from our Lagos studio by development economist and investment banker Nnaemeka Obiaraeri. Glad to have you this evening.
Thanks for having me.
Right. Okay, so I'm sure that you've seen the report concerning Nigeria's currency being one of the weakest in Africa south of the Sahara, alongside the Ethiopian and the South Sudanese currency. We've always known that we have currency problems. However, this report sort of slaps you in the face. As an economist, can you tell us what this means for our economy?
Sincerely, we do not have any currency problem. What we have is the issue of unproductivity. We are not a productive nation, and we have refused to deliberately do simple things that will make this economy a very productive economy. You know, it breaks my heart every time we sit down to keep on discussing, oh, naira is losing value. I read somewhere somebody was lamenting, oh, naira is today trading at 1,705 to $1. And I asked him this simple question: are you expecting the naira to gain over the convertible currencies when we practically produce nothing and practically imports everything that we can easily produce here? I'll give you an example. Nigeria has no business importing over $11 billion worth of agro-commodities, things we can easily produce here. Nigeria has no business importing $18 billion worth of white petroleum products and minerals that we can easily refine here. Most of the things we waste our scarce dollar resources on are things we can competitively produce here and export out of here. And for record purpose and for knowledge sake, the value of any local currency to the convertible currency is an interplay of demand and supply. First of demand and supply. When you're producing and exporting enough goods and services to earn dollar, when your supply side of the dollar is far more than the demand side, your local currency will gain massively. Countries like China practically devalue their currencies, game the system every time because they want to make their export more competitive because they are an export-oriented economy. If you go down history, between 1960 to 1970, even during the Civil War, the naira was consistently stable against the US dollar and the pound sterling. In fact, the pounds, Nigerian pounds then, was more stable. In fact, at a time, it was stable at 65 pence to $1. Even in 1968, it even gained 57 pence to $1 Because at that time, we had a productive economy. We had the Granite Pyramid of the North, the cotton, the textile. We had the cocoa of the West. In the East, we had the coal, the limestone, and the clinkers, and the palm oil. As at 1965, Nigeria controlled 45% of the global palm oil market. Today, that market is $72 billion size. If we had maintained that trajectory, we would be exporting nothing less than $38 billion worth of the palm oil products. And the truth is, we pay much emphasis at the federal side without looking at the states and the others and the local government who are the subnationals. I sit down here and I look at Nigeria economy and I can if I have the time, I will dissect before you in 15 minutes things we can do sector by sector that within the next 1 year, the naira will appreciate over $300 to $500 naira to $1. Naira will be trading at 1,000 to $1. Okay. But the truth is, we as a country have collectively, both in the private and the public sector, refused to do the simple things. Nigeria is not an isolated country. We cannot reinvent the wheel. We need to sit down and ask ourselves, what are the things that worked for us in the 60s that are not working today? I'll give you an example.
Open my mic?
Domestically, the simple things, we are not doing it. We consume 7.5 million tons of rice at a mega rice per capita consumption of 32 kg, which is lower than what we have in Ghana, 124 kg. And at this rate, we produce only about 5.3 million tons. We can easily produce 8.1 million tons of rice within the next 1 year. And what do? Set up 4,000 clusters of rice upstream. 4,000 clusters of 300 hectares each, 1.2 million hectares. Cultivated, use the Geri species or even the C54 farrow. Set up cottage factories, 10 tons per cluster. 10 tons per cluster will take 125 million naira. 2.4 trillion naira investment, scientifically done integrated manner between the states and local government areas will give us 8.1 trillion naira. Why we sell rice at no more than 50,000 naira per 50 kg bag? There's no skyrocket science about this. Only that we have refused to do the simple things, and every time we keep on lamenting about Naira will always continue to depreciate until we do the right things.
Okay, so, I mean, thank you for the background that you have laid. But when you look at under this administration, because all the things that you've mentioned have taken a while to get us here, what policy mistakes specifically stand out to you under this government?
Please, can you, your voice is very faint.
Oh, okay, I said, when you look at this administration, obviously it took us a while to get here, but when you look at what this administration has done so far, what are the policy mistakes or decisions that stand out to you?
Okay. The two major policy decisions that the federal government of Nigeria took that everybody keep on hammering upon was removal of fuel subsidy from day one and the margin of the criminal multiple exchange rate regime that created an arbitrage window for people to game our system. And we must understand that it was a decision that was rightly taken at the right time. Now, we can argue and quarrel with the fact that some underlying factors that we are supposed to have, that will have happened to ensure that the effects and the consequences of the actions become positive. Well, we are not taking. I'll give you an example. The crude oil the crude oil export provides the working capital for Nigeria. Between 2010 to 2014, we were doing an average of about 2.4 million barrels a day. As at 2010, October to be precise, we did about 2.88 million barrels for throughout that October a day. Now, what basically happened was that Buhari became president. Our crude oil output tanked from a height of 2.3 to 1.1 to less than 1 million barrels a day. And of course, there were a lot of massive corruption that happened under that regime. They printed 2.3 trillion naira by way and means. Over $65 billion dollar equivalent of naira printed. Till today, there is no underlying asset to support it. And interestingly, till today, nobody's asking questions. The economy was totally hemorrhaging when this government came into play. And now the question is, we need to go back again. First of all, restructure the oil and gas sector, both upstream and downstream, is very imperative. But beyond it, look at the headline inflation. What are the factors driving inflation in Nigeria? The highest is food inflation, which is about 16.94%. And this thing, to tackle the food insecurity, does not require much input from the federal government. All the federal government need to do is to provide policy and program support, and then security support. The bulk falls on the table of the governors, 36 governors and 77 local government chairmen. Some of the items are listed. For us to breach and stop import of $11 billion worth of agro commodities, which we can easily do here, requires the concentrated, scientific, creative activities and support of the government and local government chairmen. They need to work closely with the federal government. All the federal government need to do is to provide security for them. But all the structures or the templates or the financing can easily be done if the governors and local government chairmen are up to their roles and responsibilities as the leaders in the subnational level, at the subnational level.
Okay, so let's look at our peers. In this report, it also talks about Kenya and South Africa. It says they were having similar problems, but they've improved tremendously. When you look at those two economies, what do you see that is a little bit different compared to Nigeria?
What is different compared to Nigeria is that, for example, in South Africa, I'll give you an example. 80% of food production in South Africa are done by 32 commercial agripreneurs, 32,000. And in fact, 11,000 commercial agripreneurs in South Africa provides almost about 60% of the food. We need to be very scientific in our approach to economic management and governance. And like I said, there's a lot that can be done at the subnational level. The governors and local government chairmen. I sit down here. There is no state in Nigeria that cannot produce an export, that cannot generate over $10 billion from goods and services annually. No state in Nigeria. Now put it down. If every state in Nigeria is generating minimum of $10 billion, looking at the latent potentials and things that God has given us naturally here and harnessing all the factors of production, we won't be talking about Naira losing value. The truth is, we cannot reinvent the wheel. We need to look back inwards. Sit down and ask ourselves question. For example, now, a tuber of yam is selling for 8,000 naira, 7,000 naira, 5 kg, 10 kg tuber of yam. Yam is something, a 10 kg tuber is something you can produce at a cost of less than 1,000 naira. Then we need to provide scientific approach to it, an integrated manner. Governance needs to, the governors and local government chairmen need to sit down. We will help them structure it in a way that these things will be done from upstream to processing to storage to distribution in such a way that we reduce inflation in Nigeria, in such a way that we improve the value of the naira against the convertible currencies.
You know, it can be confusing for a lot of people. You have these reports by the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund. They always advise developing countries, including Nigeria, on flotation of the currency, devaluation, borrowing, removal of subsidy, total deregulation, and the rest of it. At the end of the day, they also write reports that show woeful, performances in this country, in these countries. What are your thoughts on our relationship with some of these international financial institutions?
See, let me explain again, another thing again that we must also look into. When we talk about, the Naira is even, okay, our relationship with the international agencies, the IMF and the World Bank and all the rest of them. See, Nigeria as a country, and like I've always said it, a beggar has no right to determine conditionalities of those who are lending to him. While we are hamstrung, while we are kind of limited now, we run to IMF, we run to World Bank, because we refuse to manage our economy well. We refuse to put our house together. Remember when Obasanjo became president, Nigeria was such indebted to some of the foreign lenders, over $32 billion. Obasanjo was very meticulous, prudent in economic management. First of all, it's not a crack team that was able to help us to liquidate our external debt obligation through negotiated settlement. We had debt forgiveness of $12 billion, and we paid out 18. By the time Obasanjo left power, he left almost about $47 billion in foreign reserve and an economy that was growing at an average of about 6.5% per annum. Basically, we need to ask ourselves this question, that even the Naira is trading at $1,700 to $1. It's not even a cost. I'll give the example of Vietnam. The Vietnamese dong today is exchanging at 24,500 dong to $1. But if you look at the Human Development Index of Vietnam, it's about 0.751%. In fact, in Vietnam, the number of poor people in Vietnam is about 0.1%. There are less than 95,000 poor people in Vietnam. 100 million population, landmass of 30,000 square kilometers. What did they do? Vietnam produced and export nothing less than $359 to $399 billion worth of goods and services annually. That our currency is low is even an incentive. If we decide today to be productive, I can give you breakdown on the agri sector. Things we can do within the next 1 to 3 years. Nigeria will be exporting and generating nothing less than $250 billion from the agro value chain.
So, you've shared so much information with us. I wonder why people like you are not in politics. You seem to know so much, not only you, a lot of Nigerians. Are these not the people that are supposed to be in positions of decision-making for our country?
My sister, we don't need to be in position of to occupy elective positions to be able to bring our input to the table. The problem we have in Nigeria is that we have pharaohs who do not know Josephs. Pharaohs who do not know Josephs are very destructive. Pharaohs who know Joseph seek for the wise counsel of Josephs, who help them to tell them their dream, even their dream, interpret their dream and help them to execute their visions. The problem we have in Nigeria, we have Pharaohs and Nebuchadnezzars who do not appreciate the impulse of Joseph's, Daniel's, Shadrach's, Meshach's, and Abednego's. See, let me tell you, I say it to anybody who cares to listen. Any governor in Nigeria that wants to work and decide to have our input, we will support them. Let them keep their fact and jack. In 3 years, Their story. See, the truth is, the problem we have at the subnational level is lack of rigor, lack of discipline, lack of compassion and empathy for the people. These guys do not understand dynamically what governance is all about. Michael Okpara, Simon Bakwe today are celebrated even when they are long gone because of the kind of things they achieved within a space of 6 years. They can make all the monies they want to make if that is their only interest in governance. But they should allow people with good head and brain to counsel them and help them to create massive wealth for our people and save the mass of suffering people in this land.
So another World Bank report this morning says that the goal to lift millions out of poverty by 2030 is no longer feasible. It says that it might take 100 years to make this happen. But when you look at China, that country lifted 800 million people from poverty within 40 years. What can we learn from China? Perhaps, maybe, do you think we should begin to look to the East?
China did not do any magic. What China did was simple. It's the same thing with Singapore. My people perish for lack of knowledge. One of the greatest disincentives to productivity is ignorance and lack of knowledge. China simply did what other developed economies did. As at 1980, the literacy level in China was about 62%. They embarked on massive literacy, massive education transformation. 25 years after, China's literacy level is about 97%. Look at Singapore. In 1965, Singapore was kicked out of mainland Malaysia because they were seen as a strip of land that the ocean will carry very, very soon. That time they had literacy level of 57%. Today, Singapore has literacy level of 98%. Most Nigerians, let me tell you, a majority of Nigerians are not knowledgeable, and that is why they're easily manipulated. One of the fastest way, I've said it, we must make basic education compulsory. Any child that is born in this land must acquire compulsory basic education, primary and secondary. In fact, we should make it a constitutional matter. 25% of our national budget, every revenue or borrowing must be tied to education. 20% on health. It must be a constitutional matter so that nobody can wriggle out of it. And number two, anybody telling you it will take 100 years for us to exit poverty is lying to you. I tell you today, if our leaders, see, it's not even an issue of corruption. It's an issue of directionless. Not knowing what to do. Yes, corruption has been a negative impact. But do you know why? If the over $500 billion that was looted out of Nigeria was invested back here, bring back their loot here, and we put it in the right sectors, under the right structure, we will exit poverty within the next 10 years. Let me tell you, of a truth, if our governors and local government chairmen and those in Abuja work closely together and seek good, we are not inventing the wheel. Repeat the same thing others have done. I tell you, in 10 years, we will reduce the number of out-of-school kids from the current 20 million to less than 300,000. We will reduce poverty in Nigeria in such a way. See, let me tell you, this land is so blessed by God. If there's any place called Eden in the Bible, it's here in Nigeria. There is no country blessed like Nigeria. The only problem we have is all of us are collective accomplices. Right. From the leaders to the led. We need to sit down and ask ourselves this question.
Okay.
What do we want for this country? We can exit the 197 million poor Nigerians who are living under less than $64 income per month. We can exit them in 10 years. If we decide today that we want to sit down and fix this country, the templates are very, very easy to execute.
Okay. So speaking about education, which is an important sector in any economy, do you think that we can have free education for every child in this country at the primary and secondary level? Do we have the funds to execute that? Because that could be a starting point.
We can. We have the fund that we can do it. Now, let me tell you something that will shock you. The old Eastern region was the most backward in terms of education because they received the white men after those from Calabar, those from Lagos that had access to the Atlantic Ocean. But there was something that happened that made them to catch up with the rest of Nigeria. There was a collective communal effort. People were contributing money to send their own people to school and all the rest of them. We can replicate the same model. Nigeria is the only place where education is not regarded highly. Nigeria is the only place where medical... See, if you go to the rest of the other developed economies, go and check, you will see they pay much emphasis on education. For us, we can drive basic education, free basic education. If we decide today to prioritize and make it a constitutional matter, 25% of all our borrowings and revenues must be channeled towards education. And then we can set up education trust funds. I come from the southeast of Nigeria. We can, at the community level, at the local government level, at the state level, if we have people who are passionate about education, we can set up education trust funds, support this outside the physical revenues that we are going to be generating by activating productive activities that will help this country to be very, very productive. And I can tell you the truth, the major problem we have in Nigeria, from insecurity to poverty to even wrong electoral choices, all boils down to lack of knowledge, low literacy. In fact, there are many certificated illiterates in Nigeria. Education is one of the keys that can give you the power and authority to liberate yourself and knock on the door of the elites. And we can actually do free education at the primary, not just free and qualitative education.
Okay. Thank you so
much. We did it before. Yes. In early 60s, Obiaraeri had free education in the West. We had 410,000 people having quality and free education in the West. If Obiaraeri could do it with coal, with cocoa alone, we can replicate it all over Nigeria, even at the current trend.
Dr. Nnaemeka Obiaraeri, development economist, thank you so much for joining us this evening.